Hello everyone. In the last part of this chapter, we're going to be going over the job order costing, but for services businesses. In this part, we're just going to see how the job order costing would apply to service businesses and what is so unique about it. So job order costing may be used by service businesses. However, the only difference is that the material cannot be part of the calculation. We only include labor and overhead, and the material would be part of the overhead. So a service business using job order costing normally renders a service that is unique to each customer with the related costs that vary significantly with each customer. An example of service businesses that would use job order costing include attorneys, hospitals, advertising agencies, event planners, and could be car repair shops. So let's see the flow of cost in a service business using the job order costing. The primary product costs for a service business are direct labor and overhead costs, as I mentioned. Any materials or supplies are insignificant and are included as part of overhead costs. Remember, in a service business, we're not manufacturing anything. So everything is just labor and overhead. The material and supplies would be part of the overhead. Like a manufacturing business, the direct labor and overhead costs of rendering services to clients are accumulated in a work in process account. When a job is completed and the client is billed, the costs are transferred to a cost of service account. So instead of having cost of goods sold, we have cost of services. So cost of services is similar to the cost of goods sold account for a merchandising business or manufacturing businesses. A finished goods account and related finished goods ledger are not necessary in this case. This is because the revenues for the services are recorded upon completion. So let's see the flow of cost through a service business. So here we have the wages, and we have the wages payable. So when it's paid, it's going to be debited, but when it's created, we have direct labor and indirect labor. The direct labor would be transferred to work in process, and the indirect labor would be transferred to overhead. Same thing for supplies. When it's purchased, it goes to the debit. Once it's used, it goes to the overhead. And for the wages payable, when we pay it, it's going to be debited. So the wages payable is the only part that goes into work in process. And the indirect labor and the supplies used will go to the overhead. The applied amount of overhead is going to be transferred to work in process on the debit side. When it's completed, when the service is completed, it goes to the cost of services. So let's see this kind of knowledge check. So the primary product costs for a service business include direct material and direct labor, direct material and overhead cost, direct labor and overhead cost, direct labor and indirect labor. So remember, in a service business, it's unique that we don't include the material in our calculation. So it's only part of the overhead. So the first two answers are not correct. The third one, we have the direct labor and overhead. I think this is tempting. Direct labor and indirect labor. No, indirect labor is not part of the primary product cost. So the correct answer is direct labor and overhead cost. So the primary product costs for a service business include direct labor and overhead cost. Any materials or supplies are significant and are included as part of overhead costs. So again, any materials or supplies are insignificant and are included as part of overhead cost. Alright, in the last part of this chapter, let's do some analysis for decision making. And here we're going to see how we analyze job cost. So job order costing accumulates and records product costs by jobs. And we've seen that already. The resulting total and unit product cost can be compared to similar jobs over time, or it could be compared to expected costs. So job order costing can be used by managers for evaluating and controlling costs. So let's see example here for our company that we've been using so far, which is Legend Guitars. They use direct material for, in our case here, wood in job 54 and 63. So job 63 is the most recent, and job 54 is an older job, but that's very similar. Both jobs produce the same type and number of guitars, so the direct material cost per unit should be the same. However, when looking at the material cost per guitar for job 54 is $100, while for job 63 it is $125. Therefore, the material costs are significantly more for the newer job, which is job 63. So let's do a comparison here. So we're comparing data from job cost sheets. So we have job 54 and we have job 63, same number of guitars, 40 and 40. The material quantity is 400 in job 54, but it's 500 in job 63. The material price is still the same. The material amount here is 4,000 and here is 5,000. So this tells us that the direct material per guitar was $100 in the older job, job 54, but in the newer job, job 63, if we take the 5,000, which is the total value, divided by 125, divided by 40, that's $125. So what happened? The job cost sheet can be analyzed for possible reasons for the increased material cost for job 63. We notice that the number of guitars are the same, the price is the same. We cannot justify it based on the increase in price. I don't think that's a reason, because the material price did not change. It was $10 per board foot in both cases, or in both jobs. The increased material cost must be related to the wood used. So, Legend Guitars should conduct an investigation to determine the cause of the extra 100 board feet used for job 63. So we used 400 in the older job, the newer job it's 500, 100 board feet more. So, possible reasons based on our analysis. It could be a new employee who is not properly trained, causing excess waste and scrap. And that happens sometimes. The wood came from a new supplier and was poor quality, causing a lot of waste. It could be also the cutting tools needed repair and were not properly maintained. And finally, another possible reason for that was the instruction for the job were inaccurate and the wood had to be recut. So all of these are possible reasons for those kind of differences in the material used. So that's the good thing about analyzing the job cost. Like, it's always good to keep track of how much the cost and the material used in each job, and you can compare it across time. So by that I conclude chapter 6. I hope you enjoyed it, and please read the chapter. Make sure that you go over these videos one more time, and if you have any question, please let me know. Thank you for watching.